Welcome to Season 2 of Winter's Glow, the journey of creating a beautiful portrait in a winter landscape. In Season 1, I painted the base blue and white and added some shaded areas in the snow. In this video, I will be sharing some of the steps for starting to paint clothing. I decided to start with filling in the snow pants because they are basically all black except for the little bits of snow that will be placed on them later. I've sped this bit of the video up a little bit because it's pretty much just painting black on the pants everywhere that needs it. Using acrylic paint, you have the freedom to paint over if you make mistakes, like if you were to go over the edge a little bit. However, I decided to use a small brush and be very careful where I place the paint because I wanted to protect my edge lines and be able to see them clearly. This portion of the video has been sped up. You can still see the demonstration, it's just going a little faster. Another benefit to speeding up parts of the video that don't need a lot of explaining is that I will be able to fit a little bit more into the time and share a little bit more with you in one video. Here you see I leave a little gap between the two parts of pant legs just so that they are not one big blur and I can define where the edge of one is. You can see again here where I leave just the slightest line between the two legs of the pants so that I have that definition there to see where the separation is. Now I'm just finishing up the pant leg here and making sure I've got the shape just right by referring to the photograph, just double checking that the shape is correct for the leg. Final touches, and then I'm going to get the laptop and take a look at the next area. For the sake of the video, I'll call them J and D. We're going to work on D's sweater, and you can see there's a hint of purple in that, but it's actually grey, but I see a hint of purple, so I'm going to mix sort of a purpley grey. I'm going to get a small, rough, sturdy brush, and I'm going to mix some white with a tiny bit of blue and a little bit of black. I will add a little bit more colour as I go, and I am going to speed up this part of the video a bit because it does take a little bit of time to mix the paint, but even in fast motion you can see which colours I'm using and how I'm doing it. I just used a tray from like it was a veggie tray of some kind, and it was the lid of it, decided to use that for mixing the paint. Now I have a blue-grey, I'm going to add a hint of purple. Now sometimes it can be tricky to know how much purple to use, like when you add a vibrant colour to a mixture you're creating. So you may have to go back and forth and like add some more of the other colours to sort of tone it down a little bit. And that's what I'm going to need to do. I'm going to add some more blue, a little bit more black, and maybe even a bit more white. So I'm toning down the purple a little bit, but still making sure there is a hint of purple in there. I'm satisfied now that I have at least one of the darker values for the sweater. So I'm going to take a little bit of acrylic retarder and I'm going to put a few drops in the paint to stop the paint from drying out too quickly. And hopefully this will give me some time to paint it without it sort of drying in the warmth of the room. So I'm referring to the photograph on my computer and I am placing this, you don't see a lot of lines on the sweater, but I'm just placing the paint where I see the darker areas on the sweater. Much like when I was painting the snow and I was identifying the areas that had shading and depth. I am using a size 3 round brush to paint these details and just trying to touch the canvas with the very tip of the brush. This portion of the video has been sped up. You can still see the demonstration, it's just going a little faster. I'm just making sure I have used as much of this darker value as possible, getting all the areas that need a bit of shading, a bit of depth in the sweater, in the creases of the sweater, the curves around the edges, anything that needs to have a sort of a deeper value before I add some white to the paint and make the lighter value for the other areas of the sweater. What I'll do is I'll find some areas of thicker paint of the darker value and mix it into the lighter value. Some of it is drying out, so I'm just finding parts that are still mixable and creating this lighter value. There tends to be a very repetitive pattern in painting, and it is, while it feels different for every object that you're painting, it's a similar pattern where you identify the darker areas, identify the lighter areas, and then start working on the in-betweens. And doing this takes the image from 2D to the effect of 3D. And you'll just see as you go along. And then it's nice to sometimes add that little hint of light at the end by lightening up specific areas as well, just to give an even stronger effect. You can see Gimli walking by as I'm doing my painting, just pacing around the dining room. So now I'm filling in these lighter areas, and when I mix the color, I kind of hope that I can create all the values and complete this area that I'm painting while the paint is still wet. Sometimes that's hard to do because the paint will dry before you get finished, and then you just have to remix the color. This portion of the video has been sped up. You can still see the demonstration, it's just going a little faster. You might notice here that as I apply the lighter value, I am going over some of the darker value. Now part of that is because the effect I would like is just to see that darker value slightly peeping through the lighter value. So the lighter value might be a little bit transparent in that area, and I intentionally wanted it to be that way. I could even add a little water to make it more transparent in that area if I needed. And then in other areas, I just see that I've placed the darker value there as a base, and the lighter color is actually supposed to be a little bit thicker. And when I apply this, I'm just thinning out those darker areas as well. Another sort of repetitive thing in painting is the going back and forth between values. Sometimes you can actually create a really fine line that you're hoping for by placing the lighter color on and then going back to the darker value and placing that on until you sort of squeeze that line you're looking for into a very fine area, which is what you intended to create. And you just have to do this little play back and forth between them. And we'll get into that more in the next video. Sharing how I created these two values and applying them to the sweater is all there's time for in this video today, just so that it's not too long of a video. And I'm looking forward to creating the next one for you and getting that posted soon. Just as we come to the end of the video, I just want to mention the darker patch on the arm and how I made that quite a large patch because I knew there was quite a significant amount of shadow there, and how it gets broken up with the lighter value like this essentially I'm highlighting the outer parts of the creases. And you'll notice that as I apply the lighter value, it does look like a sleeve that's creased. In Season 2, Episode 2, which is the next video, we will continue with this sweater and get it more defined, and we'll move to another area of the clothing. To find more of my classes, please go to ArtWithJanineLiza on YouTube and subscribe.